corporate badasses of LinkedIn. Hi, Hady. It's so good to see you today. I'm here for the final interview of my Summer of Magic series. I want to remind you all, though, that while this is the final interview of the series, it's not the end of the summer, and it's not the end of the magical opportunities that await you when you begin to deliberately manage your career and your life. And I am so excited to be here with one of my favorite people that I've met in the past year, Hady, and we were just catching up and having a little bit of a reunion. And the work that she's doing for Latinas in the workplace is just so profound and so needed in the world and in the corporate world as well. So I'm just really grateful to have her to round out this series today. So thank you, Hady. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm excited to be here. I'm honored to be your last guest for the summer. So thank you for making space for me.
Excellent. So let me give a little bit of an introduction about what the Summer of Magic is, who I am if you're just finding me for the first time as well. So I help corporate badass women get promoted into the executive suite. And one of the ways that I do that is through my 5-step executive promotion process. And what I find is that when women do the work, the results happen. And I was asked this question of, when I first started, I was going to this like small little networking event, and someone said, it was actually a guy, there's one thing that I could do to get promoted, what would that be? And it just like dawned on me, deliberately manage your career. And since then, I've been helping women deliberately manage their careers so that they can bring in opportunities, so that they can be available for opportunities. That's the magical part.
Yep.
And this series has been a reminder to everyone that there are opportunities available for you, not only available for you, but kind of right in front of our face that we're not seeing, people that we can follow up with, people that we can connect with, ways that we can alter, just slightly shift our communication strategy so that we can be seen for the badass woman that we already are. And Hady is here to tell us some of the ways that she has learned how to do that throughout her career and how she is helping leaders do that as well. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. So first, I just want to say young Hady is like cheering. Yay. I mean, so is grown Hady, but like young Hady is like really feeling your message today, Stacy. But I would just say I'm Hady. I am an author. I have a book coming out next month. And I am also a speaker and a coach. I work not exclusively, but mostly with employee resource group leaders. So I do, like, that's my sweet spot. I love working with ERGs and ERG leaders. And I'm the former head of equality at a major tech company. And before that, I spent probably about 25 years in customer facing roles in technology and financial services. Like, that intersection was my sweet spot.
Yeah. One of the things I love about you is you help organizations walk the talk. And I think a lot of organizations are very well-meaning in terms of their employee resource groups. It's not just lip service. Maybe sometimes it is, but you really help them make sure that their ERGs are making an impact and actually helping leaders. Yeah, it's huge. I mean, this does not go without saying. And if you're somebody who's been involved in employee resource groups and you've felt like they've fallen flat, there's a reason, right? They don't have hotties behind them saying, hey, here's how we can make the impact. So my very first question before we get into the work that you do is if you believe in magic and what that means to you.
Ooh, that's such a good question. I do believe in magic-ish. And I guess how I would describe that is that, like, I definitely feel like when I ask the universe for signs, or when I say like, or when I think of something that happened and I'm like, that's a coincidence, maybe, but that's also interesting how that happened. And maybe it was supposed to happen that way. And maybe it's the universe trying to tell me something. And so that's kind of how I would describe it. Like, I do believe in magic, but it's in that context.
Yeah, no, I love that. And looking for these signs and just sort of accepting the signs that are around you. I find that a lot of women that I work with will spend a lot of time negating some of the signs. They'll say, oh, well, that was an accident, or I got lucky, right? And I think that if just even acknowledging, like, maybe I did something to make that happen, or maybe this is the way it's supposed to
Yes.
be.
Yes. In the book, I have a chapter, a quote that I used to start a chapter, and it says, it's the quote is in Spanish, but I'm going to say it to you in English, which is, "What's meant for you will not pass you by. What's meant for you will not pass you by."
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you kind of just sit around idly waiting for the thing to happen, but that you kind of are open and accepting and ready to receive the good stuff that's going to come to you, which is a little bit magic-y if we think about it, because that's how I believe it. I feel like there's stuff that's going to come to me, and I have to do work to prepare and to be ready to accept it and to, like you said, receive it. Like that, some of us are like, we're waiting for a sign, and it's like, but I'm hitting you on the head. Oh, I read something the other day where it was like somebody was praying to God about a hurricane or some big storm, and he was like, I need a sign from God, and God's like, I sent you like three things. I sent you a boat. I sent you like the fire
Yes.
people. I sent you this. Like, what were you waiting for? So that sometimes the sign doesn't look like what we think it's going to look like. And I think that's where
Absolutely.
some of us get stuck, where it's like, well, I thought it was going to look like this, or I was expecting that. And it's like, well, if you stay open and you stay, ready to accept and to receive, then you have to be ready to receive it in the way that it comes. Sometimes it's going to
Yeah.
look just like what you thought it would look like, and sometimes it's going to look different.
Yeah. So I want to I want to talk a little bit more about how things have played out a little bit differently than what you expected in your career as well. But before we do that, can you share the quote with us in Spanish?
Lo que es para ti, nadie te lo quita.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, because I know that things sound slightly different, and I want the Spanish listeners to be able to hear
Yeah.
that as it was truly meant to be heard. So speaking of your career, you have this book coming out. For me personally, when my book came out, it was one of those unexpected gifts that I worked on really hard for a year. But the outcome of it was so unexpected, because I did not think that I was going to write a book. I did not say, okay, this is a major life goal. I need to write a book before I die. It was not a thing that I had set out in my plan. Yet it was something that I decided to create at the time, but then the gifts that were given to me as a result of the creation of that book, I could have never imagined. And so I'd love to hear about your book, and, perhaps some of the process, some of the ways that it came about for you, and also what the book is called, and how we can purchase it when it comes out in September.
I'll show y'all the book now. It's called Calladita No More, which is a little bit of Spanish, a little bit of English. It means silent no more. So, and that's about, it's a memoir. So it's part memoir, part big idea. And it's really about my Latina journey and the lessons that shaped me. And so that little saying that I gave you before, I use those sayings throughout the book to like kind of set it up. So I have a chapter, I set it up with a quote, and then I tell stories. And the stories are, different things that happen to me throughout my career, mostly work related, but life broadly, and how I learned lessons from those moments, and how I have decided to do things a little bit differently as a result of that. And my hope is that it encourages other people to do the same. I think one of the biggest mistakes we make, and I'll talk about it from like my personal experience, but I think I'm not alone, is that I have a lot more power than I choose to acknowledge and step into. I've always had that power. I've been in a lot of rooms. I've had the ability to make decisions. I certainly could influence people, and I didn't always leverage that power, because partly because I was afraid to, and partly I think I was waiting for like permission, and I'm not sure who was going to give me the permission, but clearly I had to come around to recognizing that no one was going to give me permission except for me. I had to give myself permission to really step into the power and sort of own my own narrative and like tell my story and take up space and all the things. And so that was probably one of the most powerful lessons I've learned, but I share them all in the book. And writing it was really fun. And like I mentioned to you backstage, behind the scenes, it has been a ton of work. Not only just, I thought writing it was going to be the hard part, but like writing it wasn't easy, but it was like easier than all these other things that I've had to do since. And which a lot of it at this point is just the marketing and the PR is where I'm at in the stages of evolution. I'm in that marketing and PR like runway. I have about a month to launch at this point.
Yeah. One of the things that I found, I did some travel in India, and I was just thinking about the title of your book and how powerful it is to use the word, hopefully I'm pronouncing correctly, Calladita instead of silent no more, right?
Yeah.
And for me, when I was in India, we used to do chanting and other, in Hindi or Sanskrit, and there was such a freedom to not actually knowing the words and just feeling the words. And I can imagine that, like I instantly had a reaction seeing the title of your book, and I was so drawn to it simply from the fact that it didn't say silence no more, right? Like it was like, there's something about that intrigue and pulling me in and just sort of saying, oh, I want to hear about this. Where am I going with this is more so your work with inside corporations and your work as a Latina leader, and helping other Latinas find their voice and trust that, because
Yes.
I don't know Spanish. My kids they do quite well, actually. I know nothing, but it doesn't mean that I don't want to hear it, that I don't want to know it, that I don't want to bring that culture into my life. But I think I could imagine that there might be a part of you that say, oh, don't go there. Or, it's like that shying away and that asking for permission first and so on. So I'd love to hear about your experience working with ERGs and other Latina leaders to be able to find that voice.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm also the director of programs for Lean In Latinas. I'm glad you brought up my work with Latinas. I also host a program on LinkedIn called Latinas Front and Center. So part of my work is really to amplify the voice of other people. So, and so it's interesting because it's like, I'm not really focusing on inward, I'm really focusing outward, but I feel like that has really, and through the work, I have actually gotten a lot more visibility, and I've had an opportunity to influence more people just by doing this work. And I know what the Latina community needs, not only because I'm Latina for, firsthand, like my lived experience, but because of all the work that I'm doing with Lean In Latinas, Latinas Front and Center, et cetera. So there's a lot of, anecdotal information that I have, but there's also just understanding like what the community needs, where the community is focused on right now, what's front and center for the community. So I feel like that is a really sort of unique perspective that I bring and that I add to a conversation. And then the work that I do with ERG leaders, it's similar. It's kind of the same. I'm really working with underestimated people, underrepresented people, people that usually either don't, not used to having a voice, have never had a voice, don't we, sometimes we're in rooms and we still don't know how to really contribute, because even though we're physically there, we still don't feel like we belong. That's like a disconnect. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
we're there,
Right.
but like we still don't really feel like people want to listen or people are listening. And I feel like, so again, having that lived experience, I can say, yeah, I know what that feels like because I experienced it myself. Let me tell you some ways to overcome that or to sort of navigate that. And
Yeah.
again, really unique experiences. I've chosen to go down a path where I feel like maybe a lot of people don't go, but it's because of my lived experience allows me to do that. And I feel like it's something that has been missing from the conversation. And so, if we can do it, let's do it. And I
Yeah.
definitely feel called. I feel called to do
Yeah.
this work.
Yeah. So speaking of feeling called, one of the things that I really like to ask all of my guests is why they feel motivated to have a voice at the table. It doesn't go without saying. I mean, you don't have to raise your hand, right? You don't have to write this book, but there's something intrinsically inside you that's pushing you and compelling you and challenging you to do more, to give more. What is that for you?
For me, it's about the next generation and really not wanting to see a whole other group of people go through the same thing I went through. It was not fun. It was hard. It was lonely. It was challenging. I didn't feel supported. I didn't feel seen a lot of the time. I didn't feel validated. I didn't feel celebrated or acknowledged, recognized. I mean, like you name it. There was a lot that I didn't experience that I wished for myself. And now that I'm in the position to maybe make the path a little bit easier for someone else, that is really inspiring to me. That is what motivates me.
Well, I need to read these stories. So your book comes out September 15th. Is that
Yes.
right?
Yeah, and it's available for pre-order right now. So
Okay.
folks can go to calladitanomore.com or my website, and my website is listed on my LinkedIn profile. And you
Excellent.
can, yeah, and it's available like bookshop.org and Barnes and Noble and all the places, all the traditional places and indie bookstores. You can pre-order them. And I'm gonna have some book tour stops as well. So I'll be announcing those on LinkedIn soon, and I'll be in Brooklyn and Philly and other spaces and other places.
Great. Perfect. And I encourage you to follow Hady on LinkedIn because, I'm sure you'll be sharing about your experience in the book launch. And for me personally, the book launch experience was huge, and being able to share that and just like that behind the scenes, I think is also really fun to watch and to watch you grow. So I'll be there cheering you
Thank
on.
you.
Um, Anything else before we head out today that you'd like to share with our audience?
Yeah, I would just say, we all have a lot more power than we think, all of us. And it's not just reserved for the Latina community. It's reserved for really everybody. Everybody has more power than they think. And really, we just need to really be brave enough to step into it and to know that no one's ever going to give us permission. I have a chapter in the book called Nadia is Coming to Save You, which means no one's coming to
No.
save you. You have to save yourself, save yourself. And
Yes.
how you save yourself is showing up for yourself. So everybody,
Yes.
show up for yourself today and every day. Just, exercise that muscle. It's going to feel a little uncomfortable in the beginning, but like, do it. You won't ever regret showing up for yourself.
Totally. And I want to remind you as you start to show up for yourself that you have support. And, I encourage people to also connect with me as well. I have a group, the Women's Leadership Accelerator, and we're enrolling now. And these are opportunities for us to be able to come in and to get that support, because just showing up for ourselves in a world that doesn't look, act, think, and talk like us, then it can be very difficult. And so
Yeah.
when you have a space, and the spaces that Hady's creating as well, to be able to show up for yourself through other people and with
Yes.
other people and give yourself that permission, that's a game changer, right? I have
Yep.
people in my groups that say, oh, I would never do this on my own. This doesn't make any sense, right? And so when we can flip that part in our brain that says I have to do everything on my own, to
Yes.
I would never do this alone, and I'm wanting to show up for myself, just like you said. So
Yeah.
it's our time. Perfect.
And I think over time, as you might show up in those community spaces to get support, and over time, you might notice a shift and notice that you're giving support and you're that support for
100%.
someone else.
Yes.
Yeah. And I
It's
love that for us.
huge. It's huge. Well, Hady, thank you so much for being a part of my Summer of Magic. It's so wonderful to have you here. I look forward to watching your book come into the world and to see what's next for you. I
Thank
can't
you. I
wait.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank
I'm so
you.
happy to have been here today. Take care, everybody.